Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new I Don't Work Here Lady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled, What a Mess, Act 1. Originally, I was just going to tell my so about the sweet karmic justice, but then I realized I'd have to re-explain the drama to explain why I cared so much. So I figured I would post it on here and he would probably lurk and find it later. Hi babe. It's a long read, so I apologize, I just remember it strongly and sometimes I get a little overzealous with details. Mess number 1 begins with our anti-heroine, moi, walking around the grocery store 2 weeks ago. As I've been mistaken for an employee at 2 separate stores before, I am now increasingly wary of strangers approaching me, and have started trying to turn off my customer service mindset outside of work. I wander into the frozen foods aisle, because ice cream, and practically shove myself into the freezer to find something specific. And that's where Cuntosaurus finds me. At first, it started with humming, with a couple of hums peppered here and there. Weird, but everyone shops different. Then we launched into foot tapping. I thought she was listening to music. Had to be a good song to tap your feet, right? My poor innocence. Excuse me. Crap was so forceful I looked up. She was just glaring down at me. I took one earbud out to be polite, obviously not holding true to my mantra of do not engage. Yes. I've been ducking standing here for 15 minutes. Is this how you treat customers? Can I get some goddamn help? I opened my mouth to respond, but didn't get a chance. She huffed and scrunched her face. Ugh. Forget it. Clearly useless. Where's unmemorable food item? Previous time this happened, I froze. So far past that stage now. I tried keeping it short and sweet, but I felt my temper rising. Don't know. Don't work here. I shoved my earbud back in. I didn't even want the ice cream anymore. Duck it. I didn't process the actual feeling, but I watched my headphones hit the floor. I was shook. While I was still processing, she was letting me have it. Excuse me? Are you actually lying to a customer? I don't care if you're on your break. I'm asking you for help. I genuinely thought for a brief moment, maybe I'm being punked. She was ridiculous, this had to be a joke. But then seeing my headphones on the floor, I got slightly angry. I still hadn't picked them up. That was a mistake. Listen, I just ducking told you I don't work here. I'm not on break. I'm not off. I do not work here. She didn't process anything I'd said. It was like my words were just background music, something to slide along the beat of her continuing rant. Even if you are on break, customers come first. You definitely shouldn't be listening to music while you're working. You're really going to risk getting in trouble for a little music. I was about to reply, maybe add a little sass and let her know that nothing had actually been playing, I just never took them out my ear. Before I had the chance, my mistake came back to haunt me. She looked down at my headphones, still laying on the floor between us. With a quick look at me, she stomped hard as crap over them. I heard the crack as the right side was now completely disconnected, little speaker just rolling on the floor. I couldn't find the words at first. Did you just ducking break my headphones? She gave me a nasty smirk. You're damn right. Let's see you ignore someone else now. I can't even really think of accurate things to describe my anger. You are going to give me money for those. Right now. Right ducking now. You had no right. There was so much more I could have said, but in my fury not many other words could come to me. She got even angrier. You should have done your ducking job. I was the wrong one to test today, idiot. In an attempt to not act out my thoughts, I imagined testing my hand on the side of her face. And then she gave me a gem. Actually, you know what? I'm getting your manager, and he and I are going to have a nice long chat about his previous employee's work ethic. She started walking away as she pulled out her phone. Better start looking for a new job. Nah, idiot, I want my money for these headphones. I stomped after her as she loudly tried to hold a conversation. Quote. I'm in your store. This little idiot refused to help me. You need to fire her. She eventually turned around and saw me following her, and proceeded to freak the duck out, screaming that I was stalking her and he needed to hurry. Thankfully, the manager found us with what I can only assume is echolocation, and tried to help. He saw her first, and started attempting to calm her. I stepped closer and he looked at me, and told me he would be right with me. He just needed to take care of this family emergency and it would only take a moment. Unfortunately for both of us, she was still screaming and drawing attention. This is her. The girl who wouldn't help me. He gave me a glance and returned her expectant look with confusion. Her voice started rising, and I swear it could have broken glass. This girl. Your employee. I waited for 30 minutes for her to acknowledge me. She was too busy listening to music to do her job. Ah. She doesn't work here. I've never seen her before in my life. His attention came back to me. Did you tell her you worked here? I told her multiple times that I didn't work here. She ducking snatched my headphones and then broke them. I want compensation for my damaged property. Or I'm calling the cops. I doubted they would come for some petty grocery store squabble, but it was the only scary repercussion I could think of. Before she could open her mouth, he dug out his wallet and handed me $30. Is that enough? I'm so sorry. Please, anything you were going to get, half off. Please don't call the police. I took the money and thanked him, but I absolutely wasn't done with Cuntosaurus. I needed the last word. Everyone in the ducking store is staring at you. You're a ducking nutjob, lady. I had so much more I wanted to say. I wanted to point out in depth every single thing that screamed that I wasn't an employee. From my sweatpants to my hair, I wanted to go through each and every clue that could have been. But after all that, I was mentally exhausted. I decided to go home. She was still raging, and spouting her own crap-talking barrage, but I was so ready to go, I ignored it and walked out of the store. Got home, explained my crappy afternoon to my so, and thought up lots of snappy comebacks and alternate actions in the shower that night. Didn't think I'd ever have a reason to use them. Until I ran into her again, 3 days later. The next story is titled, What a Mess, Act 2. Well, ladies and gents, I'd say gather round, but we wouldn't want to attract any attention to our lazy selves as we pretend not to work, well, anywhere. But here we are. Act 2 of the mess that was Cuntosaurus Rex. This time, in surround sound. And at a movie theater. This happened 3 to 4 days after our first tango in the frozen food aisle, and trust me, it was just as wild as the first encounter. To preface our tale. Through some movie theater connections, a close friend got myself, herself, my so, and another friend, tickets to a matinee. She had previously worked at the theater, and since she parted on good terms, the managers were okay with her sneaking some food and drinks for us. Movie theater friend will be Jay, for story purposes. My other friend is Gina. Important to note. Gina and Jay look absolutely nothing alike. Now, the encounter. The movie had just ended. We were waiting around while Jay talked to some of her old co-workers, and Gina went to the bathroom. Eventually, Jay and my so decided they hungered, and left to find food. I stayed behind to wait for Gina. Things were looking good. The day was shaping out to be a great one. Sun was bright, it was good weather for once. Gina walked out of the bathroom and headed towards me. She had almost reached me, when I heard it. Hey! You over there! I didn't want to believe. I didn't want to look. I took a glance from the corner of my eye. And there was Cuntosaurus. How could I forget a face that infuriating? And she walked right past me. To speak to Gina. You. Theater 6 looks terrible. Someone spilled popcorn all over my seats. And dropped their soda on the floor. You need to come clean it up before the movie starts. Gina gave me a furrowed brow. Are you talking to me? I don't work here. Cuntosaurus did not like being challenged. She grit her teeth, planted her feet, and squared her shoulders. She was ready. This time she'd win. Excuse me? I saw you talking with the other theater people. I just want you to clean it up before the movie starts. Gina slowly inched towards me, taking small steps around C-Rex to reach me. I'm sorry, you might have me mistaken for my friend. But I really don't work here. Cunt huffed and groaned and sighed. Seriously? It's just a quick cleanup. You'll be back on your break and gossiping in 10 minutes. Just clean it before I have to sit back down. She stamped her foot, and I decided to have my say. When else would I ever see her again to get my words out? I didn't even look at her. Just started talking. You're either blind or dumb. She doesn't work here. Go talk to them. I pointed towards the concession stand, where a small group of employees were watching the exchange with bated breath and a couple bags of popcorn. She gave me a quick glance, rolling her eyes. I'm not talking to you. Just tell your friend I need my aisle cleaned before I sit down for this. I'd been thinking about her since our first meeting. I had so many comebacks make their way to me in the shower, but only stood out at that moment. I went with it. Do you need a doctor? They don't fix stupid, but they'll make you pretty enough that it'll distract people when you speak. Cunt was quickly turning red. Her forehead had started to glow an ugly shade of pink. Excuse you. She looked at Gina again, taking a full step forward and prompting us both to give each other a glance. Where is your manager? Bring him here right now. I couldn't believe she only had those ears for decoration. Didn't listen to a single ducking thing. Do it yourself. Come on, I grabbed Gina and started to push her in front of me. We almost made it. When I felt a forceful, clawed hand on my arm. Cunt was still screaming. I said get the manager. Right now. I decided to match her screams. Yo, get the duck off of me. What is wrong with you? I told Gina to get the manager as well. She ran to the counter and the audience scattered, save for 2 or 3 employees who wanted to know what was happening. Good old cunt still hadn't released me from her grip. I wrenched my arm out of her grasp, and realized that Cuntosaurus had not been graced with balance. She stumbled backwards twice and fell, directly on her ass, into a wreck at Ralph promotional cutout. The manager arrived just in time to watch her flail and plop onto the floor. The woman started to ask questions. Was she alright? Did she require medical attention? But none of that could be answered. As soon as Cuntosaurus saw the manager in the flesh, she started bawling. I stared at Gina, who had stayed near the counter with the other employees, while I listened to the crybaby and her crocodile tears. All I was able to make out between sobs was employee, pushed, theater, and lying. The manager was still trying to calm her down. She stretched out a hand to help her up, but cunt waved it away, still choking out cries of supposed anguish. I'm sorry, what was that? The tears were beginning to subside. She pushed me, she gasped between whimpers, pointing at me and then whipping quickly to Gina, and she refused to help me. Your employee. Manager lady looked at Gina and then back down to the floor, a mask of confusion evident. I'm sorry, who refused to help you? Our entitled star seemed to realize she wasn't being clear, and switched tactics. She gestured to me again. Her friend. That girl over there. The manager was giving glances between cunt and Gina, and still looked befuddled. She does not work here. And then, silence. It was like a switch had been flipped. The sobbing actress on the floor was suddenly still, focusing on the manager and not looking anywhere else. She started to stutter, but then stopped. She looked back up to me. My presence seemed to give her the strength to struggle to her feet. She assaulted me. She shoved me into the poster. You need to call the police. I just shook my head. You can check the cameras. She grabbed me. Manager lady agreed, and started motioning us to come with her to the back of house. Suddenly, Cuntosaurus was no longer interested in checking the cameras. She just wanted to get back to her movie, she kept repeating, and speed limped away. Manager lady apologized and offered us some free snacks, but we assured her everything was fine, and I gave everyone the first story of my run-in with the lovely Cuntosaurus. Laughs were had. I caught a glimpse of her leaving the theater from one of the side doors, clearly not up for walking past the front again to accuse another person of working there. And that was that. I wouldn't need to see her ever again. Right. I was so sure of it. Until yesterday. At my actual job. The next story is titled, Lady Insists I Open a Business I Don't Work For. Okay, as I stated in another post, the store I managed was connected to a McDonald's. One holiday, when they were closed, I happened to be working, not happily, as I was supposed to be off holidays, but someone called in, so I'm busy stocking some items when I hear it, the huff of a wild Karen, preparing to work itself into a tizzy. Excuse me, there is supposed to be a red box in this location. Keep in mind, I'm not in the best of moods already, and this was said in the snottiest tone imaginable. Keeping an incredibly strained smile on my face, I tell her, yes, there is one over in the McDonald's. Here is where I committed my cardinal sin. Not usually working on the holidays, I had the audacity to forget that they weren't open today. Q idiot mode level 9000, UGGHHH, obviously, since it's not in here. Could you go open the door so I can return my video? Now fully cognizant of the issue, I take a deep mental breath, and tell her, I'm sorry, no, I don't have keys to their doors, they are a separate business. Initiate hypersonic Karen screech, bullcrap, you are obviously employed by the same company, you are in the same damn building. Further attempts at reasonably explaining this is not the case fall on deaf ears. At some point I have to take a break from trying to translate logic into crazy to check out a customer. At this point Karen tells me, you can ignore me all you like, I am not leaving until you help me. Being a helpful sort of fellow, I nod amiably, and begin to write on a piece of paper, handing it to her after I finish. What the hell is this? Well, you said you wouldn't leave until I helped you. Given your complete lack of ability to listen to reason, I have figured out your true problem, and I am trying to help. That is directions to Centerpoint Hospital. They are great at dealing with mental illness or substance abuse, whichever your issue is. At this point Karen lets out a screech like you know, I don't think anything in nature has ever made a sound like that. I want to speak to your manager. Okay, let me go get him. I walk into the back room, walk back out again, and say, what seems to be the problem? She is now sputtering incoherently, and storms out the door, spewing invectives, and what I can only presume were threats to contact corporate to get me fired. Bye, Karen. Do come again. The next story is titled, Shouldn't You Be in School? I'm 26. I work at a restaurant. My shift is from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m. One morning I was cleaning the tables and taking out the rubbish when this rude middle-aged woman came up to me. Excuse me, you're far too young to be working here, why aren't you in school? In her fairness, I do look younger than me age, I am blessed with a baby face. Before I could explain that I was in fact 26 years old and I left high school the better half of a decade ago. She wouldn't let me get a word in. She just kept on going and going, saying, you're throwing my life away by being a high school dropout and you will end up stupid living on the street. My manager noticed and came over. He said, excuse me, but what is going on? The lady replied, why are you hiring kids who are 13 or 14 years old? I'll call the cops because what you are doing is against the law. My manager was like, ma'am, she's in her mid-20s and has been working here for 5 years. If you're just in here to harass my employees, then I suggest you leave or I'll call the cops. I thought that would be the end of it, but no. You know what Karens are like, they never admit they are wrong and can't just let things go. This woman's response was, it's obvious you'd say that because you want to cover up your own ass. That's when I lost my cool. I got up and went into the staff room area we had out the back. I got my driver's license, yes, and my ID that had my date of birth. I went back out into the dining area and put my driver's license right up in her face and said, don't you dare assume how old I am. You're right, people should go to high school and everyone needs an education, but I already graduated high school 8 years ago. She was shocked and she just left. My manager thought it was funny, so I didn't get in trouble. The next story is titled, Not My Store, Not My Problem. For the record, I do work for Walmart, and did at the time of the story. My oldest niece goes to college just a couple hours drive from my home. Every so often, I'd make the drive out on my day off to visit with her and make sure she had everything she needed. Her mum covered the rent on her apartment, she walked most everywhere, and most stores she needed were within walking distance. Except the local Walmart. So during a visit, she thought of a few things she needed from the store. No big deal, we head over there. We wander around and gather the supplies she needed, a few school supplies, a movie that had just released, some fabric for her latest cosplay idea, and were looking over the game case, commenting on some recent releases and mulling a purchase. Enter customer. Customer, excuse me, I need a game out of here, would you unlock it for me? Me, sorry, I don't work here, but I see the guy with the keys right over there. It's my day off, I'm not in anything that could remotely be construed as dress code for Walmart, much less a name tag. Customer, no, I recognize you. I know you work here. Please stop being another lazy freak and get me that game. Me, ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't work here. I can't open any case. Customer, shut up. Look, I get it. You're lazy, you're flirting with the little twit there, you think you're gonna get in her pants. You work here. It's your job to provide customer service. Me, ma'am. This is my niece, she attends college here. I don't even live in this town. Please leave. Customer, what's your manager's name? I'm going to file a complaint. At this point, I realize I can have a little fun with this, especially as my manager at the time has a love of snarky behavior and a no-nonsense attitude when it comes to customers like this. I give her my manager's name and cell number, knowing he was also off that day. He listens to the complaint, then asks which store she's in, because that doesn't sound like the kind of person he wants working under him. She's confused, but gives the college town name. I hear him laugh over the phone. Loudly. Then he tells her, in no uncertain terms, that I don't work at that store and to leave me alone. He then hangs up before she can get a word in edgewise. Customer, oh, very funny, getting some friend of yours to cover for you. Now get me that game. At this point, the actual associate comes up and asks which game. She angrily points at it, he unlocks the case and gets a copy out. Customer, at least someone around here can do their damn job. You need to tell your coworker here to stop thinking with his dick. Local associate, ma'am, he's another customer. He doesn't work here. And please don't use that sort of language in the store. Customer, another cover story, duck. Local associate, ma'am, please refrain from swearing in the store. There are children nearby. Customer, duck you and your whole ducking store and your ducking horny ass ducks WHO won't do their ducking jobs. Duck your ducking crap, I'm going to GameStop. This attracts the attention of the store manager, who comes over to see what the commotion is. Store manager, after listening to a profanity-laden rant about the poor customer service, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're harassing other customers, pointing at me and my niece, belittling my staff, pointing at the actual electronics guy, and your language is not appreciated in Walmart. The exit is this way. If you do not want to leave of your own accord, I can have the police escort you out. It finally sinks in that I was telling the truth all along. Color drained from her face as she slowly walked away, abandoning the cartload of merchandise she'd already selected. I noticed her again on our way out, just staring blankly into her steering wheel. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.